everyone, it's time to sing with Mrs Furryboots, and my friend Emily brought 3 little snails to class this week. So we were trying to think of songs with snails. So this one's about lots of mini beasts. We've got a caterpillar, we've got a snail, a spider, a butterfly, a worm, and a ladybird. See if you can join in. There's a tiny caterpillar on a leaf, wriggle, wriggle. Tiny caterpillar on a leaf, wriggle, wriggle. Tiny caterpillar, tiny caterpillar, tiny caterpillar on a leaf, wriggle, wriggle. And the snails were sliding. A tiny little snail on a stone, slide, slide. Tiny little snail on a stone, slide, slide. Tiny little snail, tiny little snail, tiny little snail on a stone, slide, slide. And then the spider was in his web, spin, spin. Tiny little spider in a web, spin, spin. Tiny little spider in a web, spin, spin. Tiny little spider, a tiny little spider, tiny little spider in a web, spin, spin. And then the butterfly is fluttering. Tiny butterfly on a flower, flutter, flutter. Tiny butterfly on a flower, flutter, flutter. Tiny butterfly, a tiny butterfly. Tiny butterfly on a flower, flutter, flutter. And then the worm is in the soil. There's a tiny little worm in the soil, wiggle, wiggle. Tiny little worm in the soil, wiggle, wiggle. Tiny little worm, a tiny little worm. Tiny little worm in the soil, wiggle, wiggle. And then our ladybird is in the grass, and it's crawling. Tiny ladybird in the grass, crawl, crawl. Tiny ladybird in the grass, crawl, crawl. Tiny ladybird, a tiny ladybird. Tiny ladybird in the grass, crawl, crawl. So look around and see if you can see some mini beasts.